Austin, who will come and talk to you guys about the things that will happen with CLE. Today we're here because we're addressing a systemic issue that's been going on for 11 years. The sheriff has had multiple opportunities to fix this in his 4-year tenure, and everything that we have asked of him has fallen on deaf ears. The county and the sheriff's office and the union have been in negotiations now for months on end to try and fix the systemic problem of overworking deputies in the sheriff's office. We chastise other nations because of sweatshops that happen in other nations. And here in Bexar County, we have a sweatshop right behind me. Men and women who come to work every day and work 16 hours a day with no breaks, with no lunch breaks, and the county does nothing about it. The sheriff has done nothing about it. And I'm here to tell you that the union is done. That we are going to take a stand and we are going to push this issue to no end. It is not right what they're doing. They continue to hire people who turn around and leave within months because this is the most terrible place to work. It is time for the county to stand up and to take some action. It is time for the county to stop just throwing more overtime money in a hole that never gets filled. We hire people, and within the past 4 years, we've lost over 500 deputies who have resigned and left to go work somewhere where they will be treated like human beings. And today, we had to go out and hire a surveyor and get a third-party surveyor to come in and take a look at the conditions at the jail. Today, we're going to be releasing that survey to you. And it's appalling. The sheriff and the county should be embarrassed. The comments from our people about racial bias, about gender bias, and about overall working conditions, and it's sad to hear my deputies say that they miss their kids. Enough is enough. It's time for us to take a stand. It's time for the county and the sheriff to stand up and deal with this issue that they've ignored for so long and pushed on somebody else's plate. The buck stops there, and it's time for them to address these issues. I'm going to leave you with Ron now.
My name's Ron DeLord, D-E-L-O-R-D, and I'm the chief negotiator for the union. I've been at this in policing and representing police, deputies, detention for half a century. And in that 50 years, I worked for lots of deputies in many of the counties in this state. This is the worst managed and run jail in the state of Texas. We've said constantly, you cannot keep doing what you're doing and expect a different result. So it's not COVID related. This has been going on for a decade, but in the last year, it's gotten so bad. You show up at work, you have 40 hours to work that week, 5 8-hour days. On any 3 of those, you're going to be forced to stay another 8. Now, you may not know when that's coming. You can have a birthday party, you can have a christening, you can have your spouse's birthday, but you can't commit to go. Because as soon as you get to work and finish your 8 hours, you're ready to go home, you are forced by direct order that you stay and work another 8 hours. You get off sometimes at 1 in the morning. You drive home. You got a couple of hours to clean up, eat, go to bed, and get up and be back at your job at 6 in the morning for another 16-hour day. This has gone on and on and on. Depression, suicide, alcoholism, domestic violence. If you read the comments, and we have them posted, we're actually going to have all the comments posted soon, you won't be able to sleep at night. The mental health expert who spends her days working with people in job environments was so depressed after looking at this and what the employees were saying, she couldn't sleep. My question is, either the court and the judge know what's going on down there and don't care, or they can claim they don't know. Well, right now, you know. Your employees have a 60 to 80% dissatisfaction work, that their work is not valued, their time is not valued, their health is not valued, that goes on inside this jail, that falls on the sheriff. What falls on the court is to provide the deputies to fill the vacancies, to pay a wage that will attract young men and women here, and then in return, when they decide to devote their time to the sheriff's department, they be treated with respect, that they have a right to a personal life. These aren't emergency conditions. They're decisions that it's cheaper. Like the old mine working I've used before. Mine workers cared more about a mule because they can always get another human being to do the work in the mine. Well, that's exactly where we are today. They don't care. Oh, I'll put up some overtime. Well, we'll just hire them. Who cares if they're quitting faster than they're being hired? What employer in this city, in this state, hires hourly workers on a shop floor where the guy running the business has more people quit than he can hire, and they all leave, and virtually every single worker in there detests the working conditions. So we've given you notice. We've tried for 6 months. The county hasn't made a single proposal to address by bringing mental health experts in here. So we know we need to do that with our frontline workers in the medical field, because we're now seeing that. That's right in front of us, that we got to evaluate that. But these people are locked in, out of sight, out of mind, to the court and obviously to the sheriff. So fix the problem. Go in there and evaluate it, relieve the situation, and give some respect to the men and women who are working inside that facility. Show some respect for them as human beings. If you don't believe it, we got 27 pages of their comments, not just here, but online for you. So I'm going to stop there. I'm going to ask Charlie Wilkinson, who's Executive Director of the Combined Law Enforcement Associations of Texas, 25,000 members, ask him to say a few words about what he's seeing statewide legislature and whatever else he wishes.
Thanks, Ron, Jeremy. Guys, I'm Charlie Wilkinson, two weird spellings, Charley, Wilkison, Executive Director of Combined Law Enforcement Associations of Texas, head into my 27th year and 7th year in that role. I do want to say today about the inhumane conditions here that we've been monitoring for some time. Our hearts are broken for these families, for these people. They deserve to be treated like any worker deserves to be treated, to come to work, to know their hours in advance, to be able to have a life. Let's remember why you work. You work to sustain your life, your family. That's why you're renting your body out short time, do whatever you're doing. It's the same if you're a reporter, the same if you're delivering pizza, the same if you're a police officer or working as a detention officer in a county jail. There's no circumstance where it's correct for you to show up at work and not know when you'll be back. Now that might be okay for a week. That might be okay occasionally, but that can't be your life. You can't have, they've told me, these folks outside of these comments have told us that they can't even spend the money they've made. They find the food in their refrigerator is spoiled because they haven't been home. Some of their children run from them. They don't even know them. They don't know who mommy is anymore. These kinds of heartbreaking conditions, it's an absolute shame that this would happen in Bexar County. It's an absolute shame that the Commissioner's Court either doesn't know or knows and doesn't care. It's an absolute shame that this sheriff ran, promising this county that it'd be safer, promising the standards and the changes in the jail. And there have been changes, they've been for the worse. And this is the sort of thing that we have prided ourselves on in Texas. If you have collective bargaining rights as workers, then you can settle this at home. This is the way it was designed to be. And guess what? The citizens of Bexar County, in a right-to-work state, gave these workers collective bargaining rights. They have civil service rights. But if you do not negotiate in good faith, if you have no intention of changing things or looking at the real circumstances and the human cost of how these people are forced to work and forced to live, then that's not collective bargaining, and it's not bargaining in good faith. So we've got to do a gut check here at Christmas time, and we got to really think about what these folks, the workers, and then their families. I've heard of folks that that extended family have traveled and moved all across the state, across the country, so they could be here for daycare. You can't have daycare where you can't come and pick up your kid. They won't continue to keep your child in abeyance for 48 hours. Have we ever heard of that? There's no place like that. So these people are suffering inhumane conditions in there, and then it spills out into their families. And so you're going to have all kinds of repercussions, and as the study shows, if you look at it, then you're going to have people thinking thoughts about suicide, depression. When they're off, they're not going to be able to sleep. They're drinking, and there's all kinds of things that happen to the human body when you work 3 shifts. Now, these guys have been on the job a long time. In college, I remember working 3 shifts. I had to sleep another day. You know, I had to recover from that one time. These people are working 24 hours sometimes they have. And they're telling us all these stories. Please look at the study, and I guess we'll answer questions.
Yeah, sure.
Whichever one thinks we have the answer.
Mr. Wilkerson, I've never seen you come out and call an agency to task like this. I guess it seems very personal. Have you ever had to do anything like this with any?
Oh, hell no. We've never seen anything like this in our lives. We've never seen a survey that came back like this. And now CLEAT is a labor union, so every day somewhere we have issues. We're defending the employees against the administration, and we have sometimes an assertive, aggressive reputation in that. But if it's systemic here, there's nothing that any individual officer can do to change their circumstance, and it's unheard of. There's no place that we know of that's just like this. Now they're overworked detention officers and overworked prison guards, everywhere. But in this situation here, this has lasted for a lengthy period of time, and then the citizens have stepped in some years ago and gave them collective bargaining rights. And I don't want to get off in the weeds with you guys on that, but this is a right to work state. So the citizens stepped in and said, you're going to have collective bargaining rights and sit at the table with your employer on the path of self-determination as a worker, and you're going to be able to discuss these things. And so it's amounted to nothing, and we have the best negotiators in the country. And these are the best employees too. And the fact that they're struggling and carrying on and doing this is just beyond the pale. So we're here to draw attention to it. And I'll say this: if this can't be settled here with local control, if Judge Wolf can't say to the sheriff, "Hey, we've heard enough. You need to get your act together at the table. You need to fix these things so these people aren't living like this. We don't want this reputation across the United States and the world." If he can't get that done, the Commissioner's Court can't get the sheriff in hand, so to speak, then I intend to go to the legislature in January, and we'll start trying to pass state law to fix these kinds of issues. And that's a shame, because they have collective bargaining rights, and it doesn't mean that just the workers have collective bargaining rights. The county has the right to sit with their employees and negotiate. What a great benefit to sit and talk about the future, talk about problems, try to solve them, give and take, communicate about things you can fix today, things you can't fix right now, but you'd like to, set forth a plan, make promises and commitments to one another the way these people made the commitment when they raised their hand and took the oath.
And just really quickly
Well, you
though.
can ask any one of them.
Okay, yeah, well, I mean, everybody here, pilots have caps on the number of hours they can work and other professions because it's simply unsafe to do a job after working.
Unsafe for the inmates, it's unsafe for the jailers as well.
And so when you say you're going to go to the legislature in January, are you seeking to get a cap on the number of hours?
Absolutely. That's the way, you can't work in ER here at one of the fine medical facilities. You can't put in 72 hours. They won't let you do that. Police officers and peace officers can only work a certain number of hours, and we never have to talk about that. Even short staff, the cities and counties accommodate, shift staff, move people, do whatever it takes during times when they need that. And so that's not happening here, and there is a absolute jaundiced, prejudiced, blind eye toward the conditions inside the
There's
jail.
no OSHA in Texas, Occupational Safety Administration. If this was a factory across the street, the federal government would come in and shut that business down and fine them. What do you mean they don't get to go to the restroom? What do you mean they may or may not get to eat in 16 hours? Oh, and we tell you to stay and you didn't bring any food? There's no food available for you. Occasionally they might bring in some stale sandwiches if somebody reminds them. Nobody. A chicken plucking plant in Mississippi has better working rights than a Bexar County deputy, and we don't have that. It's out of sight, out of mind. It's time for our state legislature and our county commissioners to recognize just because you don't want to hire enough people, you can't take the people you have and Shanghai them. I know people can quit, but each person that does quit, and they do, costs the taxpayer that training, that recruitment, that employee, and they're going out the door faster than you can bring them in. And your answer is, well, maybe next year. Well, this is year 11. This is 5th year for the sheriff, starting the 5th year. And he has no plan that we've seen any different than the plan he had 4 years ago. So, anyway, go ahead, ask up.
I will also bring this up about staffing. Look, out in the county, not in commissioner's court, not county clerks, not in the DA's office, not the workers that pick up your trash. None of them are asked to work these kind of hours. 96 hours of overtime in a month's period. Nobody's asked to work that except the detention officers here in this facility. Everybody goes home and gets to see their family and spend time with their family. And over here, it's just like, hey, you know what? You hired on to do this job and you need to be here. And if you either quit or just sit there and take it.
And not to interrupt, but on the 95th and 96th hour, you still got to make each cell electronically and prove that you were there within a certain number of seconds, or you get written up or you're fired. And there's no evidence they're even accommodating them for fatigue or any of these kinds of issues.
So now, what are these changes then that you guys are hoping to see? What do you think will actually fix
Well,
this problem?
we actually put together this study and asked them to take a look. We knew that there were problems. We knew that there was an issue. Nobody had any idea and concept how horrible this survey would look. And it looked, the sheriff and the commissioner should be embarrassed. People that come to work here and leave, they turn around and tell their family members and anybody that they know, don't come work for the sheriff's office. It will kill you to work here. So our solution is this. This is just a survey that scratches the surface. This doesn't need to stop. Obviously, nobody knows how to fix the problem. I truly believe that in 11 years, if they knew how to fix the problem, they would have done it. It's time to reach out to mental health professionals. It's time to do some studies and some surveys, true ones, not ones that will just pat you on the back and tell you you're doing an outstanding job while people slave away at 96 hours of overtime in a month. We need to reach out and we need to find professionals to come in here and find solutions to fix this problem. We have led them in the direction with this survey, and we need them to set their egos aside and give these detention officers a much needed Christmas present in finding solutions to fix this problem, instead of just acting as if it doesn't exist. Instead of coming up with a news story about an amazing cocaine bust or methamphetamine bust, which does absolutely nothing for those people that are behind those walls. I'm tired of seeing East Side and West Side initiatives every week from the sheriff and his teams going out and protecting the county, and he does nothing for a detention officer initiative where he walks the jail and he finds solutions to fix the problem.
Yes.
This cannot continue.
Let me just, you asked about the in-here. We asked them at the table. We didn't ask for any pay raise for any deputy for the next 2 years. That's us. Whatever you give the rest, we understand the COVID, we understand the economic problem. But for those men and women at the lowest level, the detention officer starting, raise the pay high enough that 200 more people will join. And maybe they'll stay. Also, we've said in here, go in there and do a mental health study. It looks at the workers and determines the county, one department in this county had some employees complain about their working conditions. They hired a $150,000 ombudsman to figure out what's going on in that department. Well, you got 600 people right here that have the worst working conditions in the state that need the mental health. If they'll do that, if they'll pay what it takes for the sheriff to hire them, and they'll reduce the stress of the long working hours, within a period of time, we can get to normal high-stress jobs, not abnormal. So they know what to do. I'll disagree a little bit with Jeremy. They know what to do, but they got to start deciding they're going to do it. So for 6 months, their answer is, well, maybe next year we'll figure it out. Maybe we'll give them a raise 4 years from now. That's not going to work. The tires are coming off the truck. The number of people leaving, it's just a matter of time before there's a class action suit by our employees, particularly women who are being treated unfairly inside the jail. Just try to get pregnancy leave. Just try to get off on leave and find out what happened. So at some point, there's going to be a suicide. There's going to be something that goes on based upon the knowledge the workplace had. So we're telling you, they're crying out for help. You can do it. Only the county can allocate the resources necessary to fill it. If I've got a job that requires 900 people and I only have 600 people and I can't get the other 300, then there's a problem. One, I don't pay enough to get them to join and stay. And the second part, once I hire them, I treat them so badly that they won't stay. That's the two-part problem.
There's provisions in the law that allow Commissioner's Court to take over the jail from the control of the sheriff. Do you think that it'll come to that?
Well, I won't make a prediction on it. That has happened here once before, many, many moons ago. And there are places where they have transferred the jail to county administration. I'm not advocating for that. I won't, because this is a resource for people who come here, who work and stay, could go into patrol, they can go up in jail management. I don't want to separate it. But the court has a duty. These workers work for the county. The sheriff just happens to be elected boss. But if they can't say they're not our worker, they are their worker. They follow their rule books. They get paid what the county says they get paid. They get the benefits the county and the judge say they get. I think the judge has spoken out about the management of the jail about a year ago. Well, let's get real jail management in here. This isn't necessary. This is not the norm, as Charlie said. We look at all the others. This is the only place that has gotten so far in the hole that the people have appeared just to have given up. Well, we'll just allocate some overtime. We won't see them. We'll enjoy our Christmas, and we really don't care what happens to the other 900 people.
It was touched on briefly earlier about how this trickles down to the inmates, why the general population of their county should care about what's going on here.
Well, I'll answer that this way. When you work 16 hours straight without food, without a lunch break, you can just imagine what that does to the mental health of the officer and how that sets a mood. Everybody can identify with that when that happens in your household. How that the mood of one person can just change the whole atmosphere of your house. Now imagine what that does upstairs in a unit full of people who don't want to be there, who are already in a high stress environment and are already dealing with all kinds of different mental health issues and their cases and their families and all that kind of stuff, how that just trickles down onto those. And so now you're in a position where you have inmates who are more susceptible to suicide, to mental health conditions, which the county is going to have to treat and spend money on, all because you have an officer who's just done. I mean, he doesn't want to be there anymore. He misses his family. He's just spent. And you could call it a Snickers moment if you like, but that only just bleeds down to everybody, the staff, to the supervisors, to the inmates, to everything, just to make this place even more deplorable.
There are other components to it that Jeremy. There are other components to it that Jeremy is so he's so close to the fire and lives here and works with these guys all the time. But the conditions he just described. Now let's think about this a minute. You guys are way too young, but this isn't Gunsmoke, and you got one inmate in there, and both of you are just talking back and forth between the cell with your boots up on the table. We're talking about literally thousands of people, and you have the time crunch, which is a Texas jail standard requirement that you have checked on that cell block and those cells in a certain number of time, a certain number every few minutes. How many minutes?
It depends. Every 12 to 15 minutes on some, every 30 minutes to every 55 minutes.
Okay, so I wanted to point this out. So recently I was talking to these guys, not here, but and visiting. So in the conditions he's described, with you being overworked, that citizen that's in there who is, we're talking about, is innocent until proven guilty, right? That could be any of us that could be temporarily incarcerated. You're in jail, okay? You're still a human being. This other human being is going to work 96 hours of overtime. And during that 96 hours, they're not just standing looking at you. They're going from cell block to cell block using an electronic device to engage to show that they were there. And it creates that record of taking care of them. So think about this. You're under these conditions of being overworked. You haven't been able to have a meal or have a break. And someone in that cell has a question of you. Someone is out of place. Someone looks different. And you have to weigh in your mind under these conditions, what do I do about that? Can I stop and talk to them? Can I interact with them? Can I make sure they're okay while getting to that next spot to engage electronically? And if you don't do it, then you're written up. That's the kind of stress we're describing, not just kind of a benign stress or people in here are unhappy or it's a tough job. That's some of the specifics of how this works and how the public needs to know that's so that jailer going by there doing that is not just walking by because he's been told to. Jail Standards of Texas is explaining to us that you're going to need to interact and look in that cell. You're going to need to visually look in there, see where the people are. Is there a fight? Is there something wrong in there? Is someone comatose? Someone done something to themselves? All these kinds of things add to the stress. That officer on that outside is responsible for their life. And I can tell you from a statewide perspective, we have lots of in-custody death. We have hangings, we have fights that end in death and severe injury. That jailer is responsible. They feel that tension, that responsibility. So they're doing that 96 extra hours of work in a month, for example, and with no break, and and they don't. And in the back of their mind, they don't know when they'll get to come home. They don't know when they'll be off. So those are the kind of things I wanted to. Sorry about that. I wanted to make sure we knew.
Any other questions? And we can take individuals if you wish, or those that need to follow up. We thank you for coming. You can talk to any of us, or if you got what you need, or you get home, you want to call back, call any of us. We'll fill in the blanks and help you. You can
Jeremy knows.
You can go to DSABC.org, and the whole study is there online. You can print it, 60 pages. That's what we do. So you have the executive summary and some of the charts, and you can look at the questions. You can look at who answered, and there are some comments in there. Just a small portion of what people said. So I thank you for coming. If you have anything else, we'll stay and answer questions.